Cody here from Best Hire, and today for our next part of our video series we're doing here is where we're at Drew Crandall. He's the president of Keep in Touch, and we're here in Vernon, Connecticut. And what we're going to talk about today is, from the business owner side, the benefits and the importance of conducting background checks. We talked to you so much about the process and what it includes. We wanted to give you some more information from the business owner side, the value of it, and what we're actually doing. And Drew, thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome. To give you some perspective, I've known Carl, the founder of Best Hire, since 1992. We're both very active in the Talon County Chamber of Commerce. We met at a trade show that was organized by the Chamber. I started my business in 1988. We're now in our 30th year.
And what does your business do exactly? You want to just give
Sure.
them a little bit of a touch on that?
Sure. It's a marketing and media business. We're marketing consultants. We help organizations of various shapes and sizes to communicate more effectively with whoever they need to communicate with, whether that's externally with customers, prospects, the general public, government entities, or internally with employees.
Oh, well, that's great. And you met Carl those years ago, and have you been working with us since?
I have. And Carl is the one who really opened my eyes to the need for background checks. We had a number of hirings that we were going through, and I called Carl and said, what does this look like? And he spelled it out to me. The costs were very fair. I weighed the pros and cons, the costs versus the benefits, and I realized this is a slam dunk. This is a no-brainer. I need to do this. And for years, we've had a great staff here, but you just don't know who you're hiring. And Carl really, without naming names and sharing companies, he actually opened my eyes to all the shenanigans that can go on, the things that candidates do to disguise themselves or not be truthful.
It's crazy.
It's
just what some people do. We've had instances, and when people have just changed a number in their birthday by
Sure.
a day, or they've changed a single letter in their name, hoping that would throw us off the trail, and we were able to find that, but they were trying to cover up some pretty serious crimes that they've committed in the past.
Right. I was a Boy Scout. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. So the thought of misleading people is not even in my vocabulary or my mind. And so I started hiring Best Hire as the company was growing, and I was very glad I did. And every employer that you talk to has his or her own story of the employee from hell.
Yeah, everyone does.
And by that
we've all experienced an employee from hell, even if that's us being, in the company and being in the leadership element. I know when I was working some prior jobs, I had some really bad employees. Or if you're working side by side with them.
Exactly.
There are always those people that you're kind of like, how did they get hired?
Exactly. I remember in these 30 years, we've only had really, I have to say, one employee from hell. We've had a great staff here, partly thanks to Best Hire and the background checks. But this one person, you think you know who you hired, and you did your due diligence, and as soon as that person comes in, it's like, oh my goodness, what have we done? And you're right, not only the stress on me as the business owner, but the stress that this particular employee laid upon the rest of my staff.
It hurts your business.
It hurt the business. It impacted the culture and the morale of the business. It impacted the productivity of the business. I actually had one employee threatening to quit if this person didn't leave.
And that's something I think a lot of people tend to forget about when we're talking about the importance of doing background checks. Some people say, oh, I'm following in with some federal law, or I'm going to save some money. They're not sometimes concerned with the culture. Your company's culture is so hard to build from the scratch. If you're a new company, or if you're a large company, you're trying to change culture. It's just incredibly difficult.
Right.
And that one person could destroy an incredibly good culture. I've seen it happen in jobs I've worked in college when we've had one bad employee who really just kind of chipped away at a great team because the due diligence wasn't done and they didn't really look into their background much.
Right. And I'm a man of faith. Carl has known that for years. I'm very involved in all kinds of ministries. And Jesus said, a tree shall be known by its fruit. Mm-hmm. So, if you wonder what kind of tree it is, look at the fruit. And if there are apples on the tree, well, it's an apple tree. If there are peaches, it's a peach tree. Well, really the principle of doing a background check is inspecting the fruit. And I, as an employer, have the right to know who I'm hiring.
You do.
It's my business. I started it from scratch. It's my house that's on the line. It's my reputation that's on the line. And so I have the right to determine whether this person is of sufficient quality and integrity for my business. And so I have found that knowing who you're hiring is really, really important. So if you're considering hiring Best Hire, I can tell you, because I've known the founder since 1992, I've hired Best Hire over the years. They're a great resource. And in one of the promotions, they have an owl, know who you're hiring, and it says, we really give a hoot. And I'm a happy customer. I'd be happy to talk to you anytime about Best Hire, because I'm sold on them and sold on what they do.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. We're very proud of what we do. And it's key to actually know who you're hiring.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. And I think, when we also work with him a lot too, he helps us do some of our marketing. And we were talking, I know you talked to Carl. Carl is our president and owner. We were talking to Carl a while back about embezzlement.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And embezzlement, unfortunately, we see embezzlement from the private sector to the government. We have a list that we put together, and we see municipalities on there all the time. And we see it a lot in charities. I know you're involved really heavily in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, I believe that charities and nonprofits should be doing background checks?
Absolutely.
As
a matter of fact,
more than the companies should be.
Well, it's interesting, because I said I'm active in faith-based ministries. I'm part of the leadership team of our church right in this town. And we were in the process of hiring a new pastor a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And during our pastoral...
That's big. That's the person who's going to run your church every single aspect. And
right.
We get back to culture and business practices.
Correct.
Has to make sure the church is taken care of from a financial
mm-hmm.
aspect. But you also have to make sure you maintain that culture of that church and that community
right.
that you're part of.
Right. And so I was on the pastoral search team, and at one of our early meetings I said, well, what we're going to have to anticipate when we find our key candidates. We actually got to a point where we had 4 candidates that
mm-hmm.
they were on our short list. And at that point I said, we need to hire Best Hire to do background checks. And I remember a couple of the people on the pastoral search committee were shocked and horrified that I would say such a thing, because these are pastors.
And I think...
But the reality is that pastors are people.
And that's no fault of those people who think, those are good people.
Right.
There's good people everywhere.
Correct.
I think we've seen that, and I see it all the time. People are very trusting, and I think we are trusting
mm-hmm.
as a community, as whole, wherever you may be.
Right.
And you want to expect the best from people.
Correct.
But unfortunately, for the 10 people, let's say we got a group of 10 people, and they're all great people. There's that one person out of that 10 who potentially isn't 100% good, and you still have the right to know about that.
Correct. And sometimes people get defensive if they have issues in their life that they don't want to come out, and they feel like they've been branded for the rest of their life.
Which I don't believe
this is a ghost
case.
That's going to haunt them for the rest of their days. But my counterpoint to them is, yep, you messed up. Maybe you paid your dues. Maybe you're back on the straight path, and you want to rebuild your life. God bless you. But people still... In certain instances, you don't blab it out everywhere.
Yeah.
You have to be discreet. But there are certain cases where people have a right to know. If you were arrested for a crime and you were convicted and you spent time in prison, I, as an employer, have the right to know that.
You do, because, that's great. I've seen it so many times. We see it as people turn a new leaf, and they really
exactly.
do. But you still want to know that so you can wage the potential liability of someone
Correct.
who doesn't do that. We have had numerous clients, especially when we had the terrible hurricanes this summer. We had, insurance providers and whatnot. They were coming to us to get their background checks done on the people who were going to go down to do the appraisals and the construction
sure.
and damage. And one of the biggest things they were looking for was previous history of financial crimes or hardship and credit with the credit checks, because they wanted to see if that person was at a risk to maybe kind of use that to maybe conduct an embezzlement or
right.
do a financial crime.
Right. Whether it's criminal activity or, if your finances are a mess and you're going to be hired to handle money in a company.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
A potential employer has a right to know that maybe you're not good at managing money and that's not the right place for you. So what it boils down to, Cody, is that embezzlement really hurts.
Oh.
Really hurts. And I'll flesh that out a little bit. Financially, Embezzlement is a huge hit to the bottom line of
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
organization it is, whether it's little, big, or in between. Siphoning off money that's needed for other business operations. That's precious money that could have been spent to pay suppliers, to hire new employees, to launch a marketing campaign, to develop new products and services.
And that's gone now.
It's evaporated. It's gone. It ain't coming back.
No. No matter how good your insurance is, you're just not going to get that money back when you need it to keep going with your business.
And sometimes, again, as a business owner, it's a different journey when you own the business than when you're an employee. And unfortunately, in this culture, very few people, in my observation, really understand what it's like to run a business every day. They don't understand the math. They don't understand the level of responsibility. They don't understand what it takes for that person to open the doors every day. And sometimes people can cop an attitude as soon as people hear that you're the president of a company or the owner of a company. They presume and assume that you're a millionaire, that somehow you have a license to print money, you have some kind of printing press in the basement.
I really walked past your printing press as I walked in. But no, business owners and presidents come in all shapes and sizes and different financial backgrounds.
Yep, but even if you're working for a global corporation, they don't have a license to print money.
No.
So every dollar that comes in their revenue stream, is a precious dollar that needs to be deployed and allocated in a responsible way. And when you're embezzled, it's like having a well-tuned engine and then throwing a wrench into it. It just upsets everything.
Sure.
So recent surveys indicate the average embezzlement is a whopping $145,000. That's a lot of money.
That's probably close to a medium. When they look at it, I've seen embezzlements go up into the millions.
Right. And I understand that about 20% of all embezzlement cases that have been detected involve more than $1 million.
Yeah, that's insane. That's $1
It is
million.
insane.
Let's say you're a company and you run a $5 million operation and you lose $1 million to embezzlement.
Yep.
You're in big trouble.
Yep. And thank God here in my business for 30 years, we've never been embezzled because I run a very tight ship here. I see every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. So I could almost be accused of being a micromanager in that area, but this is a small business, and so I can do that without too much effort. But I have a good friend, who had a retail shop in Connecticut, and he trusted his office manager. She was a long-time, solid employee, and she would make the daily deposits of cash and checks that came in from the retail operation. And she would get in her car and drive over to the bank, local bank, and make a deposit. She did that for months and years. Well, she had figured out this way to steal money from the deposits. And he didn't discover it for a long time. And all of a sudden it was exposed, and he was shocked and horrified. But he called me about it, and he said, "Drew, what do I do?" I said, "Well, one of the things we do here at Keep in Touch, we're a business-to-business organization. We don't sell retail, so we don't get involved in credit card payments. We work with accounts payable departments with our client companies, so we bill them and we get paid."
Yeah, with the same exact way.
So we 99.99999% of our revenue is checks. But in his case, it was a combination of consumer checks and cash. And with the checks, like say you're a shopper, you came in and you shopped and you had an account with them or whatever it was, and they gave you the option of writing a personal check for whatever you bought in the store. Well, this office manager never made copies of the checks.
Oh.
So to add insult to injury, he had no idea what checks,
what the damages truly could have been.
Who gave a check to pay for what. There was total chaos.
And that's just damaging on so many levels.
Yeah. So financially, there was another case that I'm aware of where the treasurer of a nonprofit organization was embezzling for a very long time. She ended up embezzling a very large amount of money from this nonprofit.
Which is terrible when it happens. It's terrible when it happens to any business, but when it happens to a nonprofit, which goal is to help people, it's just, I think, heartbreaking.
Right. So when it came to light, she was caught, she was convicted, and she ended up in prison. To add insult to injury, she was not a CPA, but she was an employee of a CPA firm. So Crazy things happen, folks. You can't just be naive.
It's an unfortunate fact of the world we live in today.
Yep. So financially, embezzlement really hurts, but mentally, when I watch people who have been embezzled, their immediate knee-jerk response is, "How could I have been so stupid?" You feel
Which
like
is
an idiot.
real. If you make any,
Right.
if I lose $20 in the road, I'm like, how
Right.
could I be so stupid?
Right. So it's just mentally mind-blowing to realize that somebody has been stealing right under your nose. And then thirdly, emotionally. Another thing that I hear is we feel so betrayed by someone we trusted so much. And
I can't even imagine what that would be.
the pain, the emotional pain, because this was a person who you trusted, that you thought was a person of high integrity and was right there for you, and he or she burned you. So not only the effect emotionally on you feeling so betrayed, but that spills over into your business culture and destroys staff morale. It just decimates you.
Decimates.
And Cody, to me, I have been one of the few voices for 25 or 30 years against gambling. And here in Connecticut, we have become the gambling mecca of New England, and we have actually been a model and an example for local states to follow. So we had two of the world's most successful casinos here in Connecticut, and that people were watching, and before you know it, people in Pennsylvania and New York and Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Maine, everybody around us wants casinos, and they're proceeding with them. But the reason why I bring that up is we have lost the stigma against gambling. I was raised by my father and mother that said gambling is a fool's game, it's immoral, and don't waste your money on it. Mm-hmm. And what I find in our culture today is that moral fence, that moral prohibition against gambling has just about disappeared. Whether it's the lottery or whether it's the teletrack or whether it's a casino, whatever it may be, people they don't think there's anything dumb with it. But it really is a dumb use of your money, your hard-earned money. And the reason why I bring that up is I believe since the casinos opened in Connecticut, embezzlement has escalated immensely, because you get people who get so addicted to gambling that they either go and buy lottery tickets or they go down to one of the casinos, whatever their gambling venue of choice is. They get themselves in financial hot water, and then they're like I was a lifeguard years ago.
Yeah.
And they're drowning financially, and they're grasping at anything.
And
what they do is they grasp at somebody else's money that they can steal to pay off their gambling debts or keep their habit secret. So
or whatever else it could potentially be, whether they've made horrible financial decisions.
Correct.
And they're cutting like stocks. I know I've seen that. So I've heard of stories of people losing tons with stocks and then using that as an excuse to cut. Or people just like money and they think, unfortunately, it's easy to steal by me cutting some. Oh, what's it gonna hurt? My boss has all that. Going back to the president, has the printing press of money in the back. My boss has all this money. Right. Extra money isn't gonna hurt. When at the end of the day, it's always gonna hurt.
If someone were to go to a bank and hold up a bank, you'd say, well, that's really stupid. Yeah. In today's day and age, to hold up a bank, you got to be really dumb.
You got to be in today's technology.
Right.
It's just terrible decision to make.
But people who would never think of holding up a bank don't blink when they think of embezzling from an employer.
No.
But stealing is stealing, no matter what the venue is. So, coming full circle, a company like Best Hire can help you to avoid the pain that comes from embezzlement.
Or any other company-wide issues.
Right.
From determination.
You nip things in the bud. How many times have we seen, if you had nipped a problem in the bud early on, it would have been painless. But it festered almost like cancer. I'm of the age now where a lot of my peers have cancer, and I have to do my screening.
No, you gotta be studious about it.
Now, I can ignore it and I can be in denial.
You can be like, hey, I'm good. Keep on going as it grows.
Exactly.
Or you can nip it and get
Correct.
And that's what we do here at Best Hire. We work with our companies that we work with, whether it be Keep in Touch or any of the other numerous companies we work with in 49 states.
Right.
And we sit down with them and we say, let us do the check. Let us nip these problems in the bud for you, whether they be embezzlement, whether they be somebody who will be bad, that employee from hell who will be bad to your company culture. We have a way to detect these things with pre-employment background checks, and they cover everything.
And you look at $145,000 or you look at $1 million compared to the cost of a background check.
Yeah. Do you like that?
Really?
That's another thing is we've had companies call and like, we're not interested. It's too expensive. And I hate to think about what will happen if one of those companies, and it's not that expensive.
No.
Price.
When you think of what it costs to even just recruit candidates, your whole method of getting candidates and interviewing them, not even talking about what the expense is once you hire them.
Yeah. Gathering all that
compared to the cost of a background check. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and especially when you're working with us, we can help you with that, speed up that hiring process, and make it more efficient. From calling those, helping you, certify educations and helping you gather credentials. We can do that all, and we can really help people out. Yeah.
You know what it's sort of like? We're taping this interview in the winter, and a winter storm is due to come in a few hours.
Yeah.
And really, when you think of what Best Hire offers, Best Hire is like a guardrail on the highway of life. And a guardrail to help you to stay on track without damaging your vehicle and damaging yourselves, and protecting you from the off-road elements.
Exactly. And protecting anybody else who could be on the opposite side of that guardrail. Because if you hire someone bad and that hurts your company, it can hurt a lot more than just you and your company.
Sure.
Well, Drew, thank you so much for sitting down with us and talking with us.
You're very welcome.
The issues with embezzlement and why it's so important to hire. We wanted you to see the importance from a business owner side of things and how important it is to take those precautions, nip it in the butt so it doesn't become a big deal and save your company a lot of money in the long run.
That's right.
I'm Cody Fondry from Best Hire, and thank you for tuning in again. And I want to again thank Drew Crandall for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Drew.